Welcome to the Idea to Value podcast, where in every episode we highlight the latest insights into creativity and innovation from experts around the world. I'm your host, Nick Skillicorn. I care about the evidence behind what makes ideas happen, and I've already helped thousands of people just like you through my unique insights into recent scientific findings of how creativity works. I also show you how to turbocharge innovation programs so they finally deliver on the value and ideas you've been struggling to execute. Get your free training on how creativity can be improved by registering now at www.ideatovalue.com. Now let's get on with today's episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Idea to Value podcast. I'm thrilled to have Håkan Ozan with me today, who is an expert in the whole field of innovation management and innovation management systems. He also helped to draft up the recent ISO standard on innovation management, which is a thrilling topic we're going to cover today. Håkan, it's wonderful having you here.
It's wonderful to join you here. Nice to be here, Nick.
So for people who don't know you or the work that you do, can you give us a brief background as to how you got started in innovation?
Well, frankly, it started off with curiosity, really. I was part of a project where I was responsible for a lot of money to invest in innovation projects, but there were no guidelines for how they were supposed to be pursued, how they were supposed to be measured, and so on. That was back in 2004, 2005. So I started digging into it. It was a very new concept at the time, and we landed a research project. So I kind of turned into a combination of researching half time on the topic and working half time practically with it. In that case, it was for the city of Stockholm. And from then on, I've been researching for around 12 years in that field, combining that with practical consultants in innovation management. And recently I've been head of innovation advisor at KPMG as well, working very practically with it for clients, how to implement innovation management systems. So that's my background. It's a combination of building new theories and applying them in practice, you can say.
And what exactly is an innovation management system?
Well, to try to keep it brief, because this is a topic I can speak for days, it's getting it implemented into the, should we say, the current bureaucracy of your organization. Because in practice, bureaucracy, we need structure in organizations, that's for sure. And the larger we get, the more structure we will have. Then suddenly innovation comes in and rarely succeeds to come through the structures that we have. So I tend to call it sometimes that innovation management is sort of a management system as an anti-bureaucracy to the existing bureaucracy, or technically you can call it the shortcuts to actually make innovation happen within your existing structures.
I mean, there's a lot of people when they talk about innovation, bureaucracy seems to be this really dirty word. And right. A lot of companies seem to think that if you want to allow people to innovate, you need to get rid of all the red tape and all the bureaucracy. Are you saying that you still need a bit of bureaucracy, or what's your take on that?
To be perfectly honest, I was talking at a conference about a year back, and there was this clever person. Once I was done, it was this clever old man who was board director. I said, listen, Håkan, so what you're saying is that this innovation management thing that you're talking about, would you call yourself a bureaucrat or a creative person? I couldn't help myself from laughing, so I had to, to take it the way it is. And I said, well, to be perfectly honest, I'm the bureaucrat. I'm the bureaucrat that makes things happen for the creative people, because that's going to have to be required. So it may be a creative process to implement an innovation management system, but technically it's more about understanding how bureaucracy can be modified to ensure the success of innovation investments and efforts.
And what sort of things go into a management system like this? It sounds very sort of hard to imagine, but what would actually comprise an innovation management system?
In the ISO standard, we actually do have a model for it, which is pretty comprehensive. I think that the hardest thing is very holistic. It's everything from the planning part to the operational part. So it's everything from setting a vision, a strategy, and objectives for innovation, for your innovation management system, to be clear, and make sure you have a fully functioning system in place in which projects can be run. And then it's how you run the projects as well. And those will differ between different organizations depending on what your competitive situation and your size and number of employees and whether you distribute not and so on. So it always has to be adapted to each individual organization, which naturally makes it a little more complicated, but the structure is still the same. That's why it's actually plausible to have a standard for innovation, which, when you think about it, I mean, spontaneously, it seems impossible to have a standard for innovation. It doesn't sound, like something we should have. Innovation should be just, spontaneous and obvious and eureka moments and so on. And it is, it should be, I completely agree. But for innovation management systems, there can definitely be a standard because they're very good practices for, should we say, how an innovation process looks. Because it always starts from some type of need or change or so on, goes into some type of idea management process, goes into some type of, should we say, prototyping and conceptualizing phase, then goes into some sort of development phase and so on. So those will be modified, but can definitely be standardized, and all of them together will comprise the entirety of an innovation management system. So practically, it's all of it, really.
I remember when I first started seeing your posts about the ISO, and for people who don't know, the ISO stands for the International Standards Organization, doesn't it?
Right.
And I saw that you and some colleagues were working on an ISO standard for innovation management. And I thought to myself, I'd better read up like exactly what they're talking about there, because it seems to go against everything that innovation managers try to instill in companies. ISO is more around health and safety, or around food quality, or around repeatability of processes. And innovation management's meant to be there to break the boundaries and sort of shake things up. What's been your reaction on your journey towards producing something that seems so counterintuitive, a standard for innovation management?
It's actually been a fairly clear path, because once you understand that an innovation management system is a management system for innovation and nothing else, and you open up the boundaries to allow for, the system will be composed so that it'll align with other types of management systems as well. But from an ISO perspective, there's a standard for management systems to begin with, the management system standard. So, and it's aligned with that. And it does work, because management is still management, whether you like it or not. And then there's definitely different approaches to it, because if something is innovative rather than focusing on environmental projects, or whether focusing on just continuous development and so on, it will be different aspects to it. But in overall, you will need some sort of strategic objective for it. You will need to build some sort of structure for it. Because the issue otherwise is, which tends to happen when people don't work systematically with innovation management, is that someone comes up with a bright idea, they don't know who to go to. Whoever they find says, no, we don't have any budget for that anyway, I'm sorry, come back next year, and so on. So it's just preparing the organization for those things, which I tend to call extraordinary events that are not planned for. So there's more of an adaptive approach, or an agile approach, really, to innovation, rather than having a too stringent version of yourself that's just locked into bureaucracy. And to be honest, it's been a lot of debate. That's why it took us 5 years to develop the standard, because we were representatives both from research, both from academia and from the industry, from 52 countries participating in this on a period of 5 years. So you can understand that there's been some conflicts, there've been some compromises made, but from my point of view, eventually we came to something that everyone can agree on. I mean, with 50 plus countries saying, yes, this is something we can align to. We think this is a good approach. It's been back and forth, I don't know how many times, with new comments on perhaps it should be called this and perhaps it should be called that, back and forth. All of us are finally satisfied. So what it is really is it's a guidance for how to apply best practices for innovation management in an organization.
And what's been the human journey that you've seen people go on? You said there was a bit of suspicion at the beginning and some different opinions, but what was it like at the beginning and what's it like more recently?
Well, there's still suspicion. I mean, but usually that comes from a lack of insights. Because if you don't understand what, like I mentioned, what a standard is for and what it's focusing on, of course you're going to be skeptical. But that would be, face value just at first glance. But once you get into understanding what the standard is about, or technically what best practices in innovation management is about, then you get a much clearer view, and then it's much easier to understand, it's much easier to comprehend, it's much easier to implement as well. But I think the biggest hurdle I've experienced so far is getting to that level of maturity with people to understand that, yes, there are actually a lot of good practices that could just start running projects randomly, which is practically the industry standard today. As soon as we have a few creative people in the room, we're doing something innovative, then we think we're all done. No, that's not even step two. That should be way later on, because one doesn't exclude the other, of course. But from my point of view, you need to get that structure in place. Otherwise, you will have no idea whether you're being successful or not.
And what's next? So where is the ISO standard going? What's your involvement in that? And when can companies really start to sink their teeth into it?
Well, the standards was published in August, so it's available for download through the ISO online store. I think it's $100 or so, so it's available to anyone. You get a personal license. Then there's also a bunch of substandards. So we keep working. I mean, every 3 years it would need to be refreshed. So we will come back to it because there's different work groups within the ISO 56002 standard. It's the 56000 series, really. And personally, I'm engaged in several of the other work groups as well. There's one published that is regarding innovation management assessments as well, so that you can align that with your innovation management system and have a clear standard for how do we actually assess our innovation management system on a regular basis, and how should the processes look like for how we conduct this, and so on. There's one called terms and definitions, where you have which is 56000, which is focused on management principles. I'm not going to go through them. There's 8 of them, but in general, if you follow those principles, everything within the standard is aligned with those principles. They're very good and they're very important. So those you can read up on the 56000 standard. And there's a bunch of them. There's coming one substandard for which I think will be 56007, which is focusing on idea management as well, which is usually where everyone tends to turn their focus, even though from my point of view, that's just an equally valuable part as the rest of them. It's not just about coming up with good ideas, it's making sure they're aligned with the necessary needs, it's how you design the concepts and so on. So, but sure, that's what people tend to focus. They buy an idea management system, a cloud-based idea management system. I think everything is set. But the problem is, it's like when the e-commerce era started in the late 90s. It's not about having a website. It's about everything you have behind it to make sure you have the logistics in place, you have the warehouse in place, you have the sales in place, you have the shipments in place, so on. The same thing here. You can't just put up a system and expect everything to happen. You need to have a budget. You need to have the right leadership. You need to have the right culture in place. You need to, and so on. So each component is weighed equally in an innovation management system. So idea management is not secluded from that, but it's an important part. So We're looking at that as a substandard to be released soon. Then there's one for intellectual property management. There's one for innovation partnerships and so on. So there's going to be sort of in-depth best practice collections, you could call them, aligned with the main standard as well.
Håkan, it's been wonderful speaking with you. If people want to find out more about you and your work, what's the best place they can go and find out more?
I do have my blog on HåkanOzan.net. There's all my contacts are there as well, and all my LinkedIn connections and Facebooks and so on. So if you want to get in touch with me, that would be the easiest way to find me.
Perfect. I'll make sure to get that link down in the description below. It's been wonderful speaking with you, and I look forward to speaking again with you soon.
Indeed. Likewise, Nick, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for listening. If you liked it, please like, share, and subscribe, and leave me a comment about what you thought and what you'd like to see more about. If you want to take your creativity and innovation capabilities to the next level, then invest in yourself with the premium training only available at ideatovalue.com. These exclusive training modules have all been put together by me, Nick Skillicorn, and have been used by thousands of artists, innovation leaders, and CEOs to become better at understanding the source of their creativity and executing on their innovation ambitions. And there is no risk to you, as they are backed by our money-back guarantee. Now, don't forget to go out there and make your ideas a reality. See you again soon.